Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, my name is Josh Sweeney, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Prototype Prime here in Peachtree Corners, Georgia. Prototype Prime is a technology co-working space. If you haven't checked it out, go take a look. They have helped us with this amazing podcast room that we're bringing you this content from. So thank you, Prototype Prime. For today's podcast, I am going to talk about comparing interview responses. I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty on this one, and I'm going to talk about very specific phone interview responses that I received the other day or recently. And before I get into that though, I just want to talk about how we compare during our hiring process. So we go out and train organizations on what's called the Epic hiring process. And we walk them through a very specific, train them on and do some discovery on their culture and train them on a very specific hiring process in order to get the best possible talent into the organization. Now, when we do that, we are showing people how to analyze each step of their hiring process and being extremely intentful and having a strong intention around why they're asking certain questions and how they perceive those answers. In this podcast, when I'm comparing these answers, what happens in our process is we do a phone interview as our second step. So we have an autoresponder, as I mentioned before, where we auto-respond with multiple culture questions, and we lose a lot of people real quickly just that don't respond. And then we are able to filter down some people from the responses themselves just because they don't match our company culture. And again, we don't discount anybody. Usually we don't knock anybody out on one answer. We will, if all 5 of our company culture questions are not up to par, then that will culminate to passing on the phone interview. So we're narrowing it down pretty quickly when we get to the phone interview. So this next step is that phone interview portion, which we're going to talk about. So when I respond to these, it is something along the lines of, thank you for your application. We really appreciate you filling out these answers, and we would like to move on to a phone interview. And we ask them about, timing and some other elements to get them on. Now, I did this the other day, and I got 3 different responses that I thought would be really helpful to walk through, because in the end, what we're not actually just picking the first person that's a good fit. I would never recommend that. We're comparing people. And in that comparison is really where you get the best possible person. You have to be able to compare 3. An example of that is we will not hire somebody if we haven't done an in-person interview with at least 3 very good candidates. So we're always doing comparison from one person to the other. So let me walk you through some of these responses when I asked for a phone interview. So the first one reads, "Good afternoon, Mr. Sweeney. Thank you for getting back to me. That time works with my schedule. I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow. Yours sincerely," and their name. Now that's a pretty solid response. Looks good. They're going to get back to me, or they look forward to speaking with me. And I'm going to go to the next one before I start comparing. I'll read through these. Response 2 is, "Hi Josh, certainly. Thank you for your time and consideration. My phone number is," phone number, "best, comma, and their name." Now that's a pretty good response as well. Nothing out of the ordinary here, all very similar items. And then we have the last response I'm going to share with you today is, "Josh, comma, thank you so much for getting back to me so quickly. I am available tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. My number is X. Is there anything that you would need me to be prepared with? Thanks again," and the name. Now, when you first look at these are all very, very good responses. However, when you start to look at them in comparison, you start to get a good, better, best type of scenario. So let's look at the first one, what I like about that. And by look at, I mean I will provide this online for you to take a look at, but you can listen to it here. So the first one's really good. "Good afternoon, Mr. Sweeney. The other one said, "Hi, Josh," or Josh, so they addressed me by my first name instead of my last name. I don't have a big enough ego for that to bother me in any way, but for somebody you didn't know, it's going to be proper. Let's put it that way. So it's proper introduction. Now, what I notice on this one is, that time works with my schedule. They don't restate the time. They don't leave their phone number. Now, I can get all that information from the resume, but it is a little bit more work. So it's short, it's concise, and I would say that out of the three, this is probably the worst answer of three good answers, right? Three good responses, but it's the worst. Response 2, why is response 2 better? Well, I guess you could say that there's kind of a point off and a point in favor of response 2, which actually might put it on par with response 1, in that they say, "Hi, Josh," right? Again, I don't have an ego enough for that to bother me. I like to be on the same page with people, and I'm fairly friendly, I would say. And so not a big deal, but for somebody you don't know, maybe not the best way to do it. Not sure. Again, it's email. I don't want to be too nitpicky. They do, however, say my phone number is, and they give me the phone number. So now I don't have to go back searching for the number. I don't have to confirm that the number on the resume is the one that they want me to call them at, anything like that. So I personally would actually rate this better than the first response, because how they address me is just not as big of a deal. Especially in the email world we're in now, we're on a friendly basis right out of the gate. Now, in comparison though, response 3 is fundamentally better pretty much across the board. Now again, quick intro, Josh, thank you for getting back to me so quickly. Now, I am available tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., right? I asked this person, "Are you available at 9 a.m.?" They restated that they are available at 9 a.m., but inherently they're actually confirming the time, right? So they're confirming that time came across. They're not going to say, "Oh, I thought it was at 9:30. So they're reconfirming the time. They also say my number is, they give me the number, which is a great response, right? Again, I don't have to go search for the number. And then the last thing that they threw in addition to the time that the other two didn't, is there anything that you would need me to be prepared with, right? There's a lot of forethought there. And I'm going to be coming in for, I think this is the phone interview. I'm going to be getting on a phone interview, and they want to be fully prepared for anything that I'm going to request or anything else that they need. Now, we have phone interview questions that are very specific, and we don't send them, we don't need them to prepare anything. We're asking very specific questions, and so, I didn't need anything here, but I like the fact that they asked, because that would indicate to me that the majority of this time, this is this person's standard mode of operation, or hopefully would be, and that they would ask these type of questions as an employee. So, just to recap, it's not always about how good the response is individually when you're comparing people for a role. It's how good the response is compared to the other people that are coming in for that role. And again, just to recap real quickly, we have a minimum of 3 people that we interview for any position, specifically for this reason and for a lot of other reasons as well. So just think about how to compare people and how you're comparing people during your interview process.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit EpicCulture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at EpicCulture1 or email at podcast@EpicCulture.co.